We're in volume 6 of the Bible story by Arthur S Maxwell. Let me get my mouth right. Okay, and we are in part 1, story 1 for Four Noble Boys. And we have a painting here by Russell Harlan. And the printing that I have, they're kind of blurry. And it's not the computer or the camera. It's actually the real print of this painting in my book. And the caption says, Daniel and his companions propose in their hearts not to be defiled with any of the delicacies and wine offered to them from the king's table, and asked to only be served the plainest food, basically vegetables. That's what it says in the book. They just wanted water and vegetables, and it was a test. Okay, it was a test. Okay, that's what I heard in Sunday school. Okay, part 1, story 1, Four Noble Boys. Where am I? Asked Daniel, rubbing his eyes. Prison, muttered Hannah. Yeah, that's let me check it. I think it is okay. It's one of the four. Hannah, who laid beside him in the dungeon. We're in Babylon. Babylon. Suddenly, it all came back. Those last terrible days in Jerusalem, the long siege, with its hunger, fear, and despair, the breaking down of the city gates, the final onrush of the fierce Babylonian soldiers, the dead bodies of friends and loved ones, the screaming women, the frightened children. What a nightmare! Daniel remembered how the prisoners had been seized and bound, the dreadful march across the desert to Babylon, the blows, the curses of the conquerors, and finally prison. Now, as the morning sun shone through the grating above their head, Daniel, Hannah, Mishael, and Azariah, okay, there it goes, now I know, began to realize what was said, what a sad, sad living had happened to them. All four belonged to good families in Judea. From childhood, they had enjoyed the best of everything. Now they had nothing, not even freedom. And Hannah or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, and it's Mishael, Mishael. And Hannah or Hananiah is Hananiah. And Azariah. Azariah is Abednego. And I think Mishael is Meshach. And then Hananiah is Shadrach. Okay. And their Babylonian names does not mean what they're supposed to mean. They're very, very bad. But let me get back to the story. As they looked ahead, the future seemed dark indeed. Never again would they see their beloved country, nor their homes, their fathers and mothers, their brothers and sisters. All were gone forever. For the rest of their lives, they would be slaves of a hated enemy. As they talked together, they must have asked each other why did it all happen? Then they remembered the warnings of Jeremiah that just such punishment would come if the people did not give up their idols and turn again to God. Perhaps right there in prison, the four young men asked God's forgiveness for their sins and made up their mind to be true to Him always, no matter what the Babylonians might do to them. One day the prison door opened, and an officer named Ashpenaz, 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 came in. He looked over the prisoners and picked out Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. At first they wondered why. Had they done something wrong? Then Ashpenaz explained that Nebuchadnezzar was a guest of a foreseeing king. Explained that Nebuchadnezzar was a great and far-seeing king. He did not kill all his captives. Instead, he chose the best of them, those who would appear strong, healthy, and intelligent, and educate them in the school of Babylon so that they might become a strength to the country in days to come. The four boys said, the four boys, he said, should consider themselves very fortunate that they were among the few chosen for this honor. They did. They were happy indeed, but they were worried as to what it might mean. Would they would they be expected to worship the idols of Babylon, the gods of Babylon? Would they have to take part in the worship of heathen idols? Their worries grew when Ashpenaz, Ashpenaz, Ashpenaz told them that their names would be changed. Henceforth, they would have Babylonian names, not Hebrew names, not Hebrew names. Daniel was given the name of Belshazzar. Belshazzar. Hananiah was Shadrach. Meshach, Meshach, and Azariah Abednego. From this it seemed clear that their masters meant to change them completely. They were to forget they were Hebrews and become part of the parcel of Babylon. Interesting. At least I got their names pretty right. Then came the big test. King Nebuchadnezzar gave orders that the captives who had been chosen to be taught the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans should be fed from the king's table. In other words, they were to eat what he ate. No doubt the king thought he was doing the captives a very great favor in providing them a portion of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank. And he was. But Daniel and his friends were troubled. They felt they felt they couldn't eat the meat that was prepared for the king. For one thing, it was probably first offered to idols. For another, much of it too. Okay, let me show you the illustration of them. It is of it says it's an eye, so it's a fern eye. So it'll kind of look a little comic booky, I think. Anyway, To me, it looks a little comic booky. So, okay, let's get back to this. For another, much of it, no doubt, was pig flesh or pork, forbidden by God as one of the unclean foods. As for the wine, it was fermented and full of alcohol, so they couldn't take that anyway. What to do? What it was it worth fussing about? After all, it was only food and drink. Maybe they could just take a little and so avoid offending the king. Surely, when a heathen king had gone so far to try to be kind and generous to his captives, it would be downright rude not to take the food and drink he gave them. But Daniel, but Daniel proposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. He felt that if he were to yield on this point, he would give away everything. He could never take a stand on anything else. If he was going to be loyal to God all the way, he had better start right now, right here and right now. So Daniel plucked up his courage and spoke to Apinza. Most respectfully, he explained why he and his three friends could not take the food so kindly offered them. Would it be all right if they had something else? Nothing special, of course, just vegetables and cereals and good plain water to drink. Afinza looked patiently. He liked this young man. Indeed, God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with him. But he was worried. He didn't see how it could be done. I fear my lord the king, he said, if you didn't eat the food he has provided, and you become thinner than the rest of the boys, he'll take my head off. Daniel knew how easily this could happen, yet he felt sure all would be well. So he went to Melzar, whom Apinzes had put in charge of the four, and told him what they wanted to do. Just let us try it for 10 days, he pleaded. Give us give us poles to eat and water to drink. That's what it says, poles to eat and water to drink. That then look us over and do what seems best. With many misgivings, Melzar agreed. Instead of the king's meat and wine, he gave them vegetables, cereal, and water. And you can imagine how he watched them day by day for the first signs of weakness. But they didn't fall sick, as Melzar expected. Yes. Nor did their faces grow thin or pale. Instead, at the end of 10 days, their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portions of the king's meat. Meltzar was surprised and very pleased. From now on, he gladly gave the four boys the food they wanted, and somehow they were able to think more clearly than the others. And let me stop there. And yep, it says Vernon 9 down at the bottom. And like I said, it looks comic booky to me. And it's a 2-pager. Here's the bottom. That's the illustration that's on these. Okay. And then the story says they remember their lessons better. They living on a clean, simple diet, they were able to gather knowledge and wisdom faster than all the rest put together. At the end of 3 years, they were graduated from school with highest honors. As a special reward, they were presented to King Nebuchadnezzar. And the king commuted with them. He talked to them. They had never expected this. Certainly not of that far off night when they arrived, all worry and discouraged, at the prison. As for Nebuchadnezzar, he was much impressed, for all the young men whom he had in training, there were none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king, and in all matter of wisdoms and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. In other words, they were smarter than the magicians and the astrologers, the stargazers, and the wizards. Be the easiest way to say it. Which, and let me get back. Would you like to be 10 times better than all the boys and girls in your school? 10 times wiser? 10 times healthier? 10 times nobler? You can be. Just propose in your heart to serve God always, whatever the cost. And then it has the illustration of Nebuchadnezzar and the 4 in front of him. And of course, a person with a fan. Keeping them cool because I guess it was a hot day. And as you can see, it says down there in the king's chair, Vernon 9. Okay, like always, that's the end of part 1, story 1. So it's the break time. So we're going to break, and then I'll be back to start the next story in just a bit.